What was the incident at your high school? Guy threatened to burn down the school. No one took him seriously. Guy burnt down the school. What are you going to do? Burn us? Quote from School Burned. Went to school with a girl who was just perfect. Incredibly kind. Brilliant. Varsity everything. Gorgeous. This poor girl was sitting behind a deep fryer at a pep rally or something similar. And someone leaned on the table and emptied the whole thing on her lap, legs, and chest. After nearly a week of suffering, she died, and it was kind of like my entire class of 500 plus just withered. Oh god, this is heartbreaking. I hate thinking about freak accidents where someone ends up dead because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. I also can't imagine living with the guilt that a careless mistake killed someone. A kid ran into the trophy case and his arm went right through it, severing an artery. He screamed and ran down the halls, spraying blood everywhere. Everybody in class came out and saw this. Shocked. He passed out and they managed to get him to the hospital just in time to save his life. But from the amount of blood, you would have sworn he was dead. Kid passed out drunk on the train tracks the night before graduation. Friends left him there. He died. Don't think you can use the word friends in this story. The school got banned from the local aquarium for life because some students ended up carving shit into $2,000 worth of glass. I don't understand why teenagers are so fucking destructive. Like you're destroying a public attraction and ruining it for yourself and everyone else. What do you get from this? We had a rash of fights. So one of the assistant principals made an announcement that there would be no more fighting in the hallways because this isn't Fight City High. We made fun of the Fight City High thing for months. It was even in our valedictorian speech. So many gum threads. This was a semi-rural school. And they always came in within an hour of the end of the day. Wound up being a 9th grader who just wanted to get out of school early. She did it basically every other day or so for several weeks before she was caught and expelled. Several of us took to keeping frisbees in our bags so we would have something to do while waiting for the gum dogs to clear the building. Holy shit. Surprised she wasn't arrested. I posted this before. Sorry for repeating. But 3 kids drowned. All were on the high school swim team and they went to the same summer camp together. During a hike at the camp, one of their camp friends fell in a river and was swept away. All 3 jumped after him to rescue him. Thing is, it had just rained and the river was swelled. Michael Phelps in his prime would have drowned fighting the current of a swelled river. They never had a chance. I found out from the news. Stunned and sick to my stomach. They were very nice guys. A student got struck and killed in a hit and run leaving school one day. Like 10 feet away from the property. That happened at my school too. It was my friend's brother. Someone pulled the fire alarm 40 something times in 3 days. Looks at rest of thread. With its thrilling tales of threesomes, samurai swords, and so much hedonistic stupidity. Till my high school was boring as duck. We had 2. Freshman year my biology teacher was caught with a student in a car with fogged windows. Senior year a group of kids were plastered and threw up in class first period. There was a local liquor store that would sell them vodka in the morning. They would start the day with screwdrivers. One day they had too much. They were suspended for a week. But came back. The liquor store is still open. I guess they were fined. The newspapers called them the Sunrise Sippers. Someone decided covering the stairs in butter and oil was a good idea for end of year school prank. So, how many people got hurt? Because my immediate assumption is that people got hurt. What happened to that person? Were they caught? So many questions. I was one of the students that almost went down. But luckily the 2 morons who decided to oil up the stairs forgot to oil up the railing. I'm not sure how many people were hurt. It was reported sometime after I was already in class. Someone shit in a cup and threw it across the lunchroom at a dean. Still have no clue why he did it. 3 upperclassmen drank ipecac shortly before getting into the lunch line. Their plan was to time it so that once they got to the lunch ladies they'd starting violently throwing up all over the food. They were hoping that their vomit would start a chain reaction of people seeing vomit. And as a result vomit themselves. This was just after the Ipecac episode of Family Guy aired. That's where they got the idea. Their plan sort of succeeded. I was already at my lunch table when it happened. I heard screaming coming out of the food service area and kids running out. Apparently what had happened is only one of them managed to puke on the food. The other had puked on all of the lunch trays stacked up on a cart. The third guy took a little longer before he popped. He was on the floor in the food service area, going through severe stomach pain. As the other two were after they were vomiting. My mom, a teacher, told me that he's the one that told the principal what they had done. And that he vomited all over the bed in the nurse's office shortly thereafter. As for the chain reaction, there were 2 students that also threw up during the initial cascade of vomit. So it sort of worked. Some guy claimed to have a nude from one of the prettiest girls at our school. It was really just a porn star with an apparent strong resemblance. Someone was interested in seeing it and offered a picture of their girlfriend. Realizing the power of that picture, this guy and some of his friends started trading that picture for nude pictures of girls all over school. Many relationships ended. So much conflict. My high school collapsed, yep, under the weight of a shit ton of snow during my sophomore year. Luckily we were all home. Snowed out. Had to finish out our high school years in the afternoon evening. Sharing facilities with the local middle school. At prom these 2 seniors had 6 in the middle of the dance floor and had everyone from a ring around them to keep the adults from breaking it up. Was disgusting. No way in hell that happened. I swear it happened lol, I just went to the most ridiculously ghetto HS ever. We also had a Les who got pregnant because she wanted to see what a big dig felt like and ducked one of her guy friends in the back stairwell. Someone hacked the school Wi-Fi and changed the name to school shooting tomorrow and the school was on lockdown that entire day. Goddamn, I can imagine some less over the top ways that could have been used. At my school if Wi-Fi had existed back then, we'd have had it get renamed to Mrs. Elton is a rich and Mr. Martin likes little boys multiple times. I made myself a backless halter neck top. It slipped around and showed one entire bob in the schoolyard. And I didn't notice for around 10 seconds or so. I wasn't wearing a bra. The school talked about it for a while. Breaking news. Teenage girl has at least one bob. Destroying all known laws of man and decency. Guys at my high school started a prom draft. Basically a huge group of guys got a draft number and then could pick from a pool of girls that was pre-selected to qualify for the draft. My memory of it is a bit foggy. But there may have actually been a combine. They would have a draft day with trades and everything. They had a big location to meet at and dressed up in suits. And had projectors. This determined who the girl has to go to prom with basically. If a girl rejected a guy that picked her then no one else in that group would be able to ask her I believe. This got all over the local news. And it was an ordeal for a while. Why on earth would the girls agree to such an arrangement? If your answer is low self-esteem, I will be disappointed but I will believe you. I went to boarding school in Vermont that was made up of a bunch of kids who had been asked to leave other schools. Despite our delinquent pedigree we had very minimal supervision. Some of the things that went on there. Some students lived in log cabins and other primitive shacks across campus. They used wood stoves for heat. About one would go up in flames every couple of years. The last time it happened to students were burned pretty badly. Rampant drug use. Cohabitation and student-teacher liaisons were commonplace. Occasionally someone would bring in a large quantity of acid and the entire school would trip. School bus caught fire on the beach during an annual field trip to Mexico. The school finally closed when a student committed suicide by hanging himself in a prominent place. A teacher that was tall and looked like a caveman pushed a student to the ground. The student attacked the teacher but the teacher got fired. My senior year, this math teacher got caught sleeping with a fellow senior and of course he went to jail. And many more. Our plumbing teacher also got into a fight with a student. Beat him with a pipe wrench though. Like not bad enough for him to go to the hospital. But there's really no good way to hit a minor with a pipe wrench. High school senior had a full ride scholarship to a nice university with his skills in soccer. Now he's in jail for 38 years stabbing someone to death over a girl. Some girl having sex with like 3 boys in the men's bathroom. At the same time or separately? I feel like this is an important distinction. Yes. In 2010, my high school made national news when a Facebook group called City Name Rats was created. It was basically like a burn book from Mean Girls. People would post and submit truths about other students. It was pretty quickly shut down and privileges were revoked for those who were involved. My high school had a similar thing in 2013-14. But a Twitter called School Name Confessions. It was wildly popular, and as someone very unknown and not at risk to be put on it, I found it very entertaining. It was more than just burn book. It was about everything having to do with the school. After that got shut down, we had another Twitter called School Name Bananas, where people would sneak pictures of people eating bananas and DM them to the page to be posted. That one was hilarious. It never got shut down, but the owner stopped posting on it. Probably graduated or just got bored of it. Gym teacher banging a bunch of girls in the grade above mine. Some chicken driver's ed ran into a bus while just leaving the parking lot. We had a day during Spirit Week where we could dress like superheroes. A girl made a Wonder Woman costume out of different colored duct tape. Out of nothing but duct tape. It left very little to the imagination. We didn't get to dress up for Spirit Week anymore. I once made a dress out of duct tape for an anything but clothes party. While I looked like a dominatrix, that dress held up all night, which is more than can be said for some clothing I've bought in stores. If I remember correctly, I even had to be cut out of that duct tape dress that night, and it led to my first one night stand. Some ducking idiots at my old boys' private Catholic school, I know, decided that a fun prank would be to toss a chlorine gum into a crowd at a birthday party full of girls from the all-girls school. A girl ended up in the hospital. That's how you get all the ladies. Guys. Chemical warfare. Also, at the next Catholic school I went to, I transferred out of the nightmare that was the first one. A bunch of my friends were expelled for getting caught with weed up. A few weeks later, the star basketball player was caught dealing ecstasy and stealing laptops from the library. Nothing happened to him. Edit. I remembered another lovely little tidbit about the first school. My high school came up in the documentary Audrey and Daisy. If you've seen it, you know that is not good. Here we go. In high school I did the morning announcements with 2 other guys in front of a green screen every Friday on camera. We chose the background. We were given a lot of linen and sea because this was in the early 2000s when technology was a little more simple. In the AV room, we controlled every TV in the high school of over 1,000 kids. When Christmas was close, we were told don't do anything Xmas related because not everyone celebrates it. So the last announcement before the holidays, the screen comes on and in the background there is a sleigh ride video and the 3 of us pop up and yell Merry Christmas as loud as we can, dressed in Christmas costumes. Now again, the school cannot turn this off. Only we can. It just so happened that the superintendent was in the building that day. Saw the video and freaked out. It turned into this whole ordeal and we were almost suspended for 3 days. They stopped letting us do the announcements until there was a petition signed by the school to let us do it again because we were actually pretty ducking funny and most of the gags we pulled were innocent. Like eating creamed corn out of the can in less than 10 seconds if enough cans were donated to the food drive. When they let us come back, they said we couldn't make jokes and we had to have a neutral background. So, we went forward with our plan. When the announcements turned on for the first time since our near suspension, we had no background, just the green screen. Me and the other guys just wore white t-shirts. We read the announcements without as much as winking, minus the occasional moan. It would be like, today for lunch the school is serve. Buon. Pizza. Serving GPs or AAAA. At first it was minimal, but at the end of it sounded like we were having a mini orgy. We read the last announcement, said goodbye, and then started acting like the announcements were over and like we didn't know we were on camera. We stood up in our boxer shorts and walked off camera. After about 10 seconds, our buddy Scott stood up from under the table, wiped his lips off, took a big swallow and walked off of camera. That time we were suspended. TL. Doctor, I pretended to get a BJ on school camera in front of over 1,000 kids. We had a couple of hockey players hotbox their hotel room and had a gangbang with one of their girlfriends in the hotel bathroom on an out-of-town hockey trip. Classic. A couple of kids stole some potassium from the chemistry classroom. They searched the entire school's backpacks the next day trying to find it. Then those kids went and tried putting it in a lake in one of their backyards. Potassium reacts with water explosively. One of the kids had serious burns, and they started a small fire. It didn't do any major damage, but they did get sued, I think by the town, for the damage. Eventually the story kind of expanded from there as people retold it. The kids got locally famous for blowing up a lake. In 8th grade, a boy fingered a girl at a presentation in the auditorium. They both told people about it all day until lunch, where the boy's brother reminded him that the girl was his first cousin. Neither of them understood why people were laughing at them. There was one time a group of kids had cut class to smoke weed out in the bathroom and just hang out, I guess. Well, it somehow escalated to them doing stupid things and eventually led to one kid taking his own sheet and sliding it down the hallway like a ducking bowling ball, making a giant sheet streak on the floor, while another kid ran alongside it. And just to clarify, it wasn't any regular old poop. It was like semi-solid mushy diarrhea type sheet. The kid just cupped it in his hand like a ducking bowling ball and ripped wet poop as he walked and slid it down the hallway. That half of the school smelled like sheet for a few days. This one girl was really fat, and she was just one of those people who you knew didn't make the best of choices. Well, one day someone heard screams coming from one of the girls' bathrooms and it turned out she was giving birth. Her friend was there helping her and apparently they were going to try to flush it or get rid of it somehow so she could hide it from her parents. She was just so fat nobody knew she was pregnant all that time. And nobody uses that bathroom anymore. Oh man. In my high school chemistry class, my football coach chem teacher was demonstrating how raw sodium reacts with water. Well, after the first couple of light shows when just a sliver of the stuff hits the water in the beaker, we proceeded to convince him that a big chunk of sodium being tossed into the beaker was a good idea. For those of you who don't know, this experiment only works when the slivers of sodium float on top of the water in the beaker. The big chunk we convinced him to attempt the experiment proceeded to sink to the bottom. Before we knew it, he dove to the floor and the beaker exploded, sending shards of hot glass into the classroom. Several students ended up in the hospital and the ceiling tile started on fire, was quickly extinguished by the classroom fire suppression system. No one was seriously hurt outside of some minor burns and stitches. Teacher then became our biology teacher.